Yo, what's good my people? Welcome back to the SillyMMA channel, and today I'm going to be making 3 fights in each UFC weight class. 3 fights that I think make sense. The UFC rankings right now, they're active. There's a lot of fights to be made, and in this video I'm going to be going through the 3 which I think should be made in each weight class. They could be based off the result of them, or maybe just they might be entertaining. It could be a title fight, it could be some non-ranked guys. You know, just 3 fights that I think make sense and should be made in each UFC weight class. Before we get into the video, please leave a like, subscribe, all the good stuff, and let's get into the first division, the big boys, the heavyweight division. Into the first division, the heavyweight division, and the first fight you're probably expecting to see Aspinall versus Jones, but no, it's Aspinall versus Gone, because it's time to move on. It's time to admit, unless John Jones pulls a massive 360, we are never watching John Jones fight in the UFC ever again. He's been up in Thailand doing random shit, touching men. You know, we have to move on, and Gone, it's a fresh opponent for Aspinall. Technically he's coming off a win, and you've got to give it, man. Aspinall, I feel bad for him. His prime's being held up and Gone. You know, he hasn't really earned the matchup, but we've kind of been forced to do it because it would just be a rematch. We could do Aspinall versus Almeida, but I think Aspinall is Gone is what they'll do next for this fight. I'm taking out Aspinall, you know. He submits Gone in about 1 minute. Or he could even knock him out as well. But Gone could ping him. Nah, never mind. Shut the fuck up, bro. You know, Aspinall is taking him down and ragdolling him. Then next fight, heavyweight, Volkov versus Almeida. I feel bad for Volkov, you know, he's been stitched over. But he has to film the robbery. You know, it's time to admit you got robbed, and that's what happens in the sport. You know, you could rob someone in the future, you won't be complaining then. You know, that's how the sport goes. So he has to film the robbery, and Almeida needs to fight up. You know, he lost the blades, but I think that was a fluke. But you know, it's a loss, so it's a fair loss. He got knocked the fuck out, and he beat Spivak, and he's beat other guys since then. You know, he's been on the rise, and he's probably the biggest prospect we have. He's the biggest hope saving this heavyweight division. Once Aspinall gets through Gone and Almeida, there's no one left. Maybe Gaziev will be top 5 by then. But you know what I mean? For this fight, I'm taking Almeida, man. I think Almeida submits Volkov, you know. Volkov's looked good, but man, Gone took advantage of some of the wrestling in that fight. So I'm taking Almeida here. And then the third fight, for the love, for the vibes, for the passion of the game, Tai Tuivasa versus Shamil Gaziev. I don't think Tuivasa is fighting anytime soon. He's looking about 950 pounds. Get him on my 600 pound life, please. You know why? And this one's for the vibes, man. Tuivasa needs to get finished. I want to see his fast get knocked out again. Even though Gaziev probably won't knock him out, just like wrestle him. And Gaziev's got it, man. You know, people forget, man. Gaziev is a menace, you know. I think he won't knock him out, but I think he will wrestle him. I think he'll dominate him and just lay on top of him, you know. I think it's an easy win for Shamil Gaziev. Then for the light heavyweight division, the first fight, yeah, bro, Haskada Samurai versus Carlos Ulberg. Since Ulberg took that robbery win over Blachowicz, we knew this was next number 1 contender, and it makes sense for both of them. There's not much in this fight, you know. They both need one more. Could make an argument for Yuri, but man, I don't know. I think the argument is stronger now. Anklaev's the champ, to be fair. Like, if Pereira's not getting the next shot, it should be Yuri. But you know, if I'm Yuri, I'm fighting, and he fights Ulberg, in my opinion. And in this fight, I'm taking Yuri. I think Yuri knocks out Ulberg. You know, like Ulberg looked boring, he looked ass against Jan Blachowicz. Then second fight, Alexander Rakic versus Reyes. Rakic needs a big step down, man. Like, he beat Smith when he was 5th ranked. He's done nothing since then, and you know, he's not a bad fighter, but come on, man, he's behind the light heavyweight division, in my opinion. You know, he needs to get something, he needs to get a win, and a win over Dominic Reyes would be massive. And Reyes deserves that step up, man. Get him this fight, get him one more, and then get him fighting for a belt, man. Dominic Reyes champion 2026, question mark, you never know, bro. But yeah, this is the correct fight to make, in my opinion. Could do Reyes versus Jan Blachowicz, but they've had a rematch. I mean, they fought before, something fresh, you know what I mean? And then for the third fight, Zhang Mingyang, the big Denson himself, and Johnny Walker are fighting. And I want the winner of that fight, to take on the winner of Khalil Roundtree and Jamal Hill. This will be, I say the number 2 contender. What I basically mean is the second number 1 contender fight, if you know what I mean. And I think this fight will clear up a lot of smoke in the division. You know, we'll know who's on the way up, like who's prospecting, who's down. Is Jamal Hill still got it? Is he finished? Is Roundtree really good, or did he have a good performance against Pereira? Is Mingyang legit? You know, I think this fight, once it's happened, will clear up a lot of smoke. And I think these 2 fights are good for the division. I think 205 is moving in the right direction as of recently. And imagine we get like Zhang Mingyang versus Khalil Roundtree or something like that. That would be beautiful. On to the middleweight division, and the first fight here, Sean Strickland versus Israel Adesanya, number 2 rematch. There's hype behind it, and it makes sense for both. I want to see this now. Sean Strickland lost to Duplessis, of course. He's lost twice in his past 3, both to Duplessis. He picked up a win against Paulo Costa in between, and Israel Adesanya, you know, he's on his skid. it was Strickland and Strickland and Duplessis skid out. And I think this rematch needs to be made because there's an ideology in a lot of people's heads that, you know, Strickland fluked that win against Adesanya. We need to find out, you know. Everyone will be hyped for this. The press conference will be golden. We'll have Strickland shaming Izzy for being on TikTok at the big age of 36, wherever the fuck it is, yeah. But I need to see this fight, man. It's a good return fight for Israel Adesanya, and it keeps him at the top of the division, you know. And also, Imavov versus Barrio. This needs to be made just to clear the logjam. There's a bit of that in the middleweight division. It makes a clear number one contender fight, and it clears the queue. If I'm Imavov, I'm not accepting any fights, and I'm sitting my ass out and, you know, waiting for something, waiting for the Duplessis and Chimaev fight to happen. Because he just knocked out Adesanya. People forget, man, like, who knocks out Adesanya? No one's ever knocked out Adesanya, and we're saying Imavov needs to fight again. And yeah, I'm saying he needs to fight again, you know, give him Barrio. He's only beat Cannonier, but you know he's fighting nerd, big hype. Just give him a shot, man. Number one contender fight in the middleweight division. And also, this is my first non-ranked fight, Pereira versus Beklev. Beklev's had 2 knockouts first round in the UFC over the likes of Zachary, you know. And this would be a fire fight. Pereira shows up. We need to see Beklev into the deep waters, into the tough fight. Beklev looks like a menace so far, power striking, good ground and pound, massive ground and pound, big grappling, you know. And Pereira looked shit and boring against Abis Magomedov. He looked like a fish out of water and broadcast out in his walkout doing some TikTok dance. And if Pereira shows up, man, this would be an absolute banger in a firefight. And the winner could get into the top 15, back into the top 15 if you're Pereira. And Beklev, I want to see him, man. I think he's a top 10 staple at some point in the UFC. On to the welterweight division, 170 pounds. First obvious fight, Jack Della Maddalena, the welterweight champ, versus the soon-to-be non-ranked fighter Islam Makhachev, bro. Why are we giving a non-ranked fighter a shot for the belt? It's unbelievable. Nah, I'm joking. But yeah, man, this is a sick fight, you know. We wanted Ilya versus Islam. We couldn't get that. Bilal bottled it. But, man, this is not too bad either, you know. Islam's moved up. The other contenders have made way. And, yeah, JDM and Islam is next, man. Put it in Perth. This is a banger. And then next, Bilal versus Shavkat, the former champ. And, you know, this one was booked before. And for Bilal, you know, it's the correct fight. It's on at the top of the division. But, you know, Shavkat, I feel bad for him because he didn't have to fight Gary. And, you know, he fought Gary, I know of that shot. He was promised a title shot, you know, all of that bollocks. But, man, as I said on here, this sport does not wait for no one, bro. He got injured, but now, all of a sudden, Brady has come in. And fucking the pound-for-pound number one has entered into your division. You have to fight again, buddy, and there's nothing you can do about it, you know what I mean? So, Bilal versus Shavkat, this is also the right fight to make a welterweight. And also, Edwards versus Morales. I think Morales has been blessed to, because he shouldn't be getting a number 2 ranked guy. But due to the situation that Edwards is in, this is the correct fight, man. Edward needs a major step down. He's looked unbelievably shit in his last fights. He looked rubbish against Bilal, couldn't handle any pressure. Actually, no, he don't look that bad against Bilal, but he looked rubbish against Brady. And Morales has just been tearing through guys. He melted Gilbert Burns. Sean Brady couldn't do that to him. Bilal Muhammad couldn't do that to him. You know, JDM did that to him, but not in the style that Morales did, you know. And yeah, get Morales a chance to get up in the rankings. Edwards needs to prove himself once again as a top contender at 170 pounds. Then onto the lightweight division, the first fight, Arman versus Paddy. You know, Arman clearly isn't getting the shot, and I think he should, you know, because the UFC have a bad thing. They say, oh yeah, I don't like you, you can get punished. Like, for example, Anklaev. Yeah, I don't like you, you can get caught. It doesn't matter about the backstage bollocks. All that should matter is how they perform. If they're one of the best guys in the world, they should be in the UFC. And in this case, if you're one of the best guys in the world, you should be getting the shot. He beat Olivera, and Olivera's fighting for a title just because Arman got an injury. Like, the UFC shouldn't be punishing guys. But, you know, he has to work with it. And Paddy needs to not fight old people. We need to see him against someone in their prime. He's calling out Gaethje. We know why he's calling out Gaethje, because you ragdolled him. You know, he could get knocked out, but that's not happening. Scousers don't get knocked out. But, man, come on. You need to have a real fight. And Arman is that real fight in this division. And this will be high-level grappling exchanges. I think Arman like 50-45 sim or 30-27 sim, whatever it is. But Paddy, if he can beat Arman, fair enough. Like, you know, he'll get knocked out by Tutorial after. But anyway, then Hooker vs Gaethje, rebook it, makes sense, and fun fight. There's not much here, you know. You could have this as a number 1 contender fight, but none of these guys are ever becoming champ. They're here while they're here, and we need to enjoy them. They're here for fun fights, and Gaethje, you have to get out of that ideology that you were the guy at 155, bro. You are not that guy. You said you feel passed over when Charles Oliveira got the shot. Buddy, you beat Rafael Fiziev on short notice, and you lost the first round. You know what I mean? Buddy, you ain't getting the shot. And Dan Hooker, you know, he beat Gamrot. He's on the hype at the minute. Can't believe this is the guy that got clotted by Arnold Allen like 2 years back. But anyway, rebook this one. And then this fight will be massive. Benoit Saint-Denis versus Mauricio Rofi. Rofi needs the rank shot, and this would be sick. Yo, Saint-Denis proved in his last fight. He still got it. I mean, it was against Prepelec. But we know Saint-Denis is a marauder, man. He's got no defense. he just moves forward, and Mauricio Rofi, like, bro, that knockout against Bobby Green, oh my word, we know the talent this guy has. Flory takedowns, you know, excellent striking, powerful striking, floor, style, you know, he's got everything. And to be honest, man, hear me out, unpopular opinion possibly, I think St. Denis 30-27, bro. This is the Mauricio Rofi that lost the round to James on top. But, you know, St. Denis' defense is so bad. Like, if he knows how to keep his guard up in this one, he could beat Rofi. But, man, yeah, Mauricio Rofi, in my opinion, I don't know who will take this one, but yeah, it's a sick fight. Anyway, at 145 pounds, Mosvar Volk. Yo, who the fuck is Mosvar Volk? Who the fuck is that guy? Anyway, Volkanovski, Alexander Volkanovski versus Mosvar Evloev. This is the right fight, man. I can't believe the UFC are bottling this. Giving, yeah, the shot just killer in Mexico. I had a massive rant about this in my This Week in MMA video. Go check that out. I don't want to repeat this now. But this makes sense, man. Evloev's on a mad streak, and Volk, once he was calling out Evloev multiple times in the presses, he wants to build it for his legacy, and this will just be such a high level fight, man. I actually think Evloev's entertaining. Unpopular opinion, bro. Even though it should be popular, man. Grappling is entertaining if it's not stalling, and Evloev's got great grappling displays. He's had some boring performances. You know, I do think he lost to Arnold Allen, but come on, UFC. It doesn't matter if you're in Mexico, Evloev deserves the shot. And also, yeah, shouldn't get the shot, because this fight is open. Diego Lopez and yeah, Rodriguez, they were cursing each other's whole fucking bloodline at a press conference, you know, Colon. And now, you're not even making them fight each other in Mexico as a co-main event. This would be sick. They have beef and it makes sense for both. But a clear #1 contender out there in the air, you know. I think if Yair wins, he can get the shot. If Lopez wins, I don't know, but he'll be in that position. I mean, he's just been beat by Volk. There'll probably be a new champ by then. Volk will probably be out of there. But yeah, man, how are the UFC not making this fight? And yeah, Rodriguez getting a title shot. It just sums up the year that the UFC is having so far. And then at Featherweight, Arnold Allen versus John Silva. This is the real #1 contender fight, in my opinion. This is an absolute banger, man. Arnold Allen, this guy beat Mosvar Evloev. I don't care what you say, this guy beat Mosvar Evloev. And you might be saying, why is Evloev, why is Arnold Allen having to fight down? He's coming off a win against Chikadze. He's only lost to Evloev and Holloway. If he beats John Silva, that does more for him than beating a Diego Lopez or yeah, Rodriguez. This is the biggest prospect in the UFC, you know. John Silva has all the hype in the world and he's looked unbelievable. And for John Silva, this is the fight to get him right up there among the elites. This is the fight to get him the title shot, you know. But this would be war, man. This would be an absolute banger. You know, this is the type of fight, this is the type of card they had to do for Mexico. Get this as the featured fight. Lopez versus yeah, as the co-main, you know. Maybe fucking Marab or something, you know, as the main event. That works. Why is yeah getting the shot? Anyway, onto the Bantamweight division. And the first fight I need to see at 135 pounds is Merab Dvalishvili versus Sandhagen. This technically should be the winner of Merab versus O'Malley. But realistically, man, unless O'Malley impresses us, I think Merab wins. And I want to see him versus Sandhagen, bro. There's no one left for Merab at the minute. And Corey deserves it, you know. He's done his bit in the division. He's beaten Chito Vera. He's beaten Figueiredo. He's beaten the guys, man. And there's no one else. Merab's beaten Jan, Aldo, O'Malley, Umar. All these guys, bro. Merab is the GOAT at 135 pounds. And there's no one able for him to fight right now that isn't fresh except from Sandhagen. And then speaking of Jan versus Umar, get this fight done on. Oh, this will be the greatest. Bro, put this on a shit pay-per-view main card. It will make it a sick main card. This fight would be unbelievable. And it makes sense, you know, fight it out for the rematch with Merab. You could make a case for Jan with the title shot now, but there's always the elephant in the room has already been lost and dominated by Merab, you know what I'm saying? And Umar, he's done the best against Merab so far. Get these two in the octagon. This would be unbelievable. Who am I leaning towards here? Oh my god, I'm going to take Umar, you know. I'm going to take Umar, but wow, in the 3-rounder, I'm taking Umar. In the 5-rounder, we'll have to see. But I don't know. And then Zahabi versus Cejudo. This one, it makes sense for both. Cejudo has to fight down Zahabi up. And it's the right fight to make, you know. Zahabi has adapted the role of the legend killer. You know, after beating Aldo, it would be a fitting opponent for Cejudo. And this would be a war. I think Cejudo pieces him up over 3. But I see this, the type of fight that they put on like a UFC Nashville or something like that. Some random town, some random state main event. But this is the right fight to make. This would be an unbelievable fight. I think Cejudo will just outwork him and probably knock him out, in my opinion. But Zahabi didn't even get knocked out by them Aldo shots. So I don't think Cejudo's knocking him out. But anyway, on to the last division, the Flyweight division. And then the first fight I want to see is the title fight. And it's Pantoja and Kara France, the winner of that, versus the winner of Royval vs Cup. I'm praying it's Pantoja vs Cup. Or at least Kara France vs Cup. I just need Royval to lose. I need Cap to win. I need him for the next shot. We've seen Royval face Pantoja 2 many times, bro. We've seen it at UFC 296 one time before. We're done. We need Pantoja versus Cap, man. So I think Pantoja pulls through against Kai France with ease. I think Cap can beat Royval if he looks on his game. But to be honest, I do think Royval beats Cap, and I wish they just gave Cap the shot without him being tested. But you know, this would be a sick fight either way, as long as Royval loses. Cap versus either one of them two, this would be good. And then Steve Urzek versus Joshua Van. Of course, Joshua Van is fighting Bruno Silva at a week on Saturday. I mean, this would be beautiful boxing exchanges. I mean, Steve Urzek, we know he's the top 5 fighter, but his ranking doesn't show it. So if you're saying, you know, Joshua Van deserves a top 5 shot, if he beats Urzek, he's basically getting the #1 contender fight. And if Urzek beats Van, get him a top 5 fight. You know, winner needs to get a top 5 fight. This would be a beautiful fight. And then a non-line fight, Louis Kavanagh versus Charles Johnson. Of course, Charles Johnson just lost to Ramazan Temirov. And he won the last round against Ramazan Temirov. You know, he shows he's got it. He's knocked out Joshua Van. But I mean, he wasn't a 4-fight winning streak, but it was against just no one. And Kavanagh's 2-0 in the UFC. He's looked great in both the fights. And it is a bit of a bigger step up. But make this fight, the winner would get a top 15 shot. I think Kavanagh pieces him up. I can't lie. I think 29-28 Kavanagh. But this would be an unbelievable fight, man. And that is it. Thank you very much for tuning into this video on the SillyMMA channel. Please leave a like, subscribe, so you don't miss any of the content coming out. Shout out SillyMMA.